she did with molars. And so it's sort of embarrassing because everyone forgot that she had these powers. I can't even remember if I answered the question. So anyone else have a question?
Sorry, it's always lovely to find out that people are curious about
Me? Thank you. Thanks.
I was wondering, what was it really like working on especially and also, aside from some adaptation.
Oh, right. Zan or Virginia? Well, first, thank you very much for saying all those sweet things about me, but I'm just human. I get cranky and crazed just like everybody else. And people often think, oh, there's Merv! Hi, honey. It's Merv. Merv spoils me rotten. Rotten. And Merv and Kathy are married. They've been friends of mine for years and years and years. And I keep saying, Merv, please don't spoil me anymore. But, well, I do love it. But, I mean, I don't want you to spoil... Well, but I do want you... Well, I'm so confused. Because all we girls, make up your mind. Because girls, we just, as women, we love... Of course, we adore being spoiled. Well, I guess guys like being spoiled too, but we girls love it. I do love it. But I wish you wouldn't. But I wish you would. But I wish you wouldn't. But I wish you would. I wish you wouldn't. Rigel was very interesting, actually, playing opposite Rigel, because he's an animatronic character. He's much more than a Muppet, because Muppets are just hand-operated, creatures. But, well, there are more sophisticated Muppets too, of course. But all of the animatronic characters were, as I said, sophisticated and run by computer banks and several people. And so there were several people crawling around the floor. And when you're working with one of the animatronic characters, it's very difficult at the best of times because you don't want to step on anybody. And there's someone operating his actually with the hand up Paul Roger's bum, But, sorry. But, well, really, that's what it is. And he's called a puppeteer. And what he's doing is just holding Rigel stable. Otherwise, Rigel will just fall over, right? So he's holding him stable inside his little throne and turning his head. But then there were computer banks in the corners, with operators with computers operating his eyes, his eyebrows, his cheeks, his mouth, pretty much everything to do with his face. His face was a robot. And his arms were operated by two puppeteers, right? Who operated, I think it was one each, obviously. So I don't recall one person having both arms. So of course there's three people that you have to step over, and there's leads, there's cables that run to the computers. So you've got cables running along the floor, and you've got three people squashed all together, sitting on like a giant, like a skate. What do you call it? Skateboard. But it's a giant one. And so when you're working as an actor, you can't look down. And you notice an inexperienced actor, dare I say, maybe one who might be tempted to, and I spot them in movies, they might be tempted to look at their mark. You have a little spot, normally a piece of tape on the ground, where the camera wants you to stop. And why that is because, most of you know this anyway, but for those of you who don't, let's say, for example, I'm working with quite a few people today, and let's say that Claudia is right there, and I'm coming into the room, and Claudia's standing there, and she's got a camera on her, right, already. The camera's on, we use multiple cameras on Farscape, so she's got a camera on her already, and I've got a camera on me here. So if I come into the room and I stop too far forward, I'm going to do what they call is block Claudia. So suddenly this camera's going to see my silly old head going boing. So certain point so that we're both in this frame, so this camera can see both of us, like the edge of me and Claudia. And this camera, of course, the one at the front, that's mine, it's on me anyways. But, so what they do is they put a little piece of tape on the ground. And an inexperienced actor you'll see them, they'll be walking into it, it becomes second nature. So that it's kind of amazing that you use an extra couple of senses when you're an actor. Most of us have 6 senses, but we always say that actors have about 8. Because not only are you using, an extra sense to, you've learnt your lines and you have to negotiate your character and use everything that you are to negotiate the character, but you've also got to be aware of where the cameras are, where the crew members are, where the puppeteers are, where the cables are, and you've got to learn to step over everything and not miss your mark. There's so many things to remember, and lights as well. You've got to, the director will come up just before a take and say, listen, we want you to end up over there, but just be very careful not to move too far out. If you move an inch too far, you're going to be out of your lead light, and you're going to block Claudia. So you have to make sure that you're never, and all of these directions are just crazy. And then you've got contact lenses on, which have a set pupil. So your pupils don't dilate and contract like a normal pupil. Well, what they do underneath the contact lenses. But the hole that you look through is fixed when you have a contact lenses on. Well, these, especially the lenses that I was wearing with the colour, because they were pale blue. And so what happens with these lenses is that you have no peripheral vision whatsoever. Not me, but do you know what I mean? The contact lenses, while you're wearing the contact lenses, you have no peripheral vision because it's all blocked out by the fixed lens. So you can't see your mark. So it's really, really, really hard. So to answer your question about Rigel, it's really difficult. And I used to step on the poor puppeteers all the time. And the trouble is they can't go, oh, or scream or say something even worse. They've got to be quiet. So the poor things, I would step on them. And I would step on them. I trip over them. I trip over the cables. It's really, really hard to negotiate. So it's very, very difficult for those of us in prosthetic makeup who are wearing the lenses to map out where to walk. The people who are in no prosthetic makeup just had it so easy compared to us, because we had to try and figure out, okay, well, that's 3 steps over there, and then I've got to try and eyeball something in the distance where I know, okay, well, I've got to stop. Whereas a normal actor outside prosthetic makeup can just stop with his mark. Does that make sense? So it was really difficult working with Rigel in particular. And another thing with the, sort of flirting with Rigel, sometimes the puppeteers in the beginning, in the first few episodes, would, if Rigel was on camera, say Rigel's here, and the camera's on him, they'd switch him on, so everything was working. But if Rigel was talking to me, and the camera was on the back of Rigel's head, the puppeteer who held his head up would be working with everyone else would be off doing something else, unless his hands were moving. But he would be electronically turned off. So I would have to act Rigel. Rigel's face would be switched off. So his eyes would be closed and his face would be hanging, but yet his body would be moving and his arms would be moving accordingly to the scene. And we had to, all of us, we did it, but we had to say to the animatronic people, please, can you, even if he's not on camera, can you please just make his face active so that at least we're not completely distracted, by him. But really, if you think about it, when you're an actor, you have to, sometimes you have to act to a broom handle. And what I mean by that is, you often have to act to something that's not there. So we have to believe that Rigel is real, because if we don't, you're not going to. Right? And you can see by our reactions and our faces, facial expressions, if we don't believe he's real, then you're not going to believe it either. And the thing is, often with special effects, you might have something, a lot of you know all of this, I'm sorry if it's boring, but some of you don't, so just bear with me while I explain to some of the people that haven't heard this before. Hi Rick! I've got to tell you, I'm so sorry, I'm going to tell everybody, I have to. See these beautiful silver earrings? They're so gorgeous. Rick made it. Abercrombie, no, what's your surname? Abercrombie, I got it right. Rick Abercrombie made these for me. He handcrafted them and beat them, and they're beautiful, and they're solid silver, and they've got little Celtic crosses on the top. Come and have a look later, because his work is just out of this world. It's just beautiful. So stand up and say hello, buddy. Hi, Rick! Often what we have to do is, when we're watching, let's say for example, we're all watching the command center, we're looking out the portal, out the window of the command center, and there's marauders and God knows what explosions and all kinds of things happening. What we've got, what the one of the assistants has to do sometimes is carry a broom and put a little piece of yellow tape on the top of it, and he has to carry it. That's our eyeline. So wherever he puts this little piece of tape, you watch him with our eyes, is where the special effects is going to be seen. So often we're acting to a broom. Yeah. And sometimes when you're in a scene and the actual actor can't fit because the camera has to squeeze into a corner, and because of oh gosh, it gets really complicated. But there's sometimes the actor can't actually physically be standing there delivering your lines. Because they need to put some equipment or lighting or something in the corner. So sometimes instead of Crichton or one of the other actors, I'm just acting to a piece of tape, a bit of sticky tape on the side of the camera. But that's called acting. Any more questions? Yes?
We often know you bring it to U.S. for many years.
8 years, no, more, 9, 10 years, oh my God.
And you're getting the gold order.
Yes.
But if you were new to the U.S. and all of that, would you still use Mel Gibson?
You are too sweet. Well, would I still use Mel, for those people in the back, would I still, actually, you do? Oh, bless you, everyone. No, I asked if, because I've been in America now, he said, you've been in America now for a number of years, which is, I keep thinking it's only a few years, but I came the year of 9/11. I came the year of 9/11. And so that was, of course, 2001. And so now it's 10 years. And he said, would you still, if I knew what I knew now, would I still use Mel Gibson as one of the references for my green card? Because when I came over here, cheeky, he's very mischievous. Beware and be warned. Be warned. He may look very gentle, but watch out, there's a naughty boy living in there. But that's one of the things that makes me very, very sad, actually, because Mel is honestly one of the nicest people you could ever meet in your life. Now, if you think about it, all of those years since Road Warrior, which was 1982, so a happily married guy, you didn't ever see him at parties, you didn't see him on drugs, drunk, womanizing, faithful to his wife, has a ton of kids. Really kept his nose clean, was always wonderful in all of the press. We all used to laugh and enjoy him because he was so funny when he was being interviewed on TV for the last 30 or 40 years. No one could ever say anything negative about him. I mean, just the nicest guy in the world. However, just recently, he just got himself into a whole ton of hot water. But what happened is that now people have now people can take photos with their phones. And of course this, you couldn't do that years ago. So when he slipped and, poor guy, just got himself all wound up with alcohol, just had a bit of a crash in his life, but it was very cruelly recorded by a lot of people who were egging him on. And a lot of these silly girls in bars were giving him shots and egging him on to say things and videoing him and really embarrassing him. So, I actually know him really well. He's such a wonderful man, and there's not one of us in this room, and there's not one of us on the planet that hasn't done something that we, honest to God, would not want to be recorded doing or saying. All of us in a moment of weakness. And, it just so happened he's one of the most famous people in the world, and so he had all eyes on him and people recording him and being cruel to him. So the press actually crucified him, and he didn't deserve it. And it's not like he's one of those silly girls or boys that you see out constantly partying and womanizing and cheating and being drunk and, disorderly for years and getting into trouble in the press constantly. He's not like that. He's always just been a really great family guy, really sweet, really clean living. But he just fell over. And instead of us picking him up, we shut him down. It's really sad. So, sorry. I'll fight for you, Mel. Forever. But bless you for asking. Say hello to my sister while we're waiting, Laura. Say hello. Hello. Say hello to my sister and her bosoms. Sorry.
Your character is also kind of like comic. I think Hollywood, one of their characters were last from the VR Sony. Well, she's doing just like sorry. And she can throw people across the wall using her mind. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you were able to inspire a lot of people with their science fiction.
I wish that was true. I don't think it is, because I don't think that any of the, sadly really, I don't think that any of the producers and casting people, designers really were aware of Zan. Because if they weren't, why the hell haven't they used me? And given me a job? I think it's a coincidence. I really seriously do. Unless, I don't know, it's a bit of a mystery, I'm not quite sure. I can't imagine that they would copy, because Zan is so recognizable. And those people who love Farscape, know how recognizable Zan is. I can't imagine that anyone else would, these clever, very smart designers would just copy. I can't imagine they would. I just think it's a coincidence. I really do. I could be wrong. Yeah. Who? I don't know. Who first?
Well, I was wondering if Zan had survived to season 3 for the Cages and Terra Firma episodes, and how do you think Zan would react to being on Earth and being surrounded by a planet full of crocodiles?
Being surrounded by what?
A planet full of crocodiles.
I think she would have been amused. Because Crichton amused her endlessly. And so I think she would have had her work cut out for her. It would have been like the Kate +8, being like the mother of a lot of wayward kids. I think she probably would have had a hands full trying to straighten out all of the Earthlings. What is wrong with all of these creatures? It would have been hilarious, because she was such a logical thinker. She was a little bit like Spock, and thought that Crichton was like a child, you know, like a funny little child. Because actually, well, she was 800 years old, and Crichton was, what, 30-something? So he's like a little baby to her. So I think, yeah, she would have been amused by Earthlings. Oh, very much so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think she would have adapted for sure. Yeah, but don't forget, she adapted. She lived on a prison ship for hundreds of years, and they visited all kinds of different planets, and she didn't ever seem phased. I don't think she'd be phased by living on Earth. Not really. She probably like it. A lot of cousins living in the ground. She would have been like Deepak Chopra. Written lots of books. She would have had her own reality show. Can you imagine? Join Zan. $35.
Having been part of two iconic universes, how would you compare the Road Warrior universe to the Farscape universe in terms of hopelessness and things of that nature?
Difficult to compare, really, because they're so different. One universe is of Earth and the other is outer space and in another dimension completely. The only comparison would be with the characters or the shows? The characters. Totally different characters. No. The only comparison would be that they both were very protective and fought for a cause. Apart from that, there was no similarity because the character in Road Warrior was very emotionless, and she was a fighter. She's more like Erin, actually. She's very cool and cold and calculated and cool. Erin was an alien, and that's part of her race. Those qualities. I mean, Chloe's not like that, but Erin is. But I think the character in Road Warrior is more like the Erin character than Zan. Zan is loving and soft and motherly and maternal. And I think the only comparison would be that they both fought for a cause. Yeah, good question. Interesting.
I've heard that there's stories about you nibbling on people's arms. And I was wondering, have you ever been asked to spank a fan?
Now, if that's not an invitation...
What are the odds that I'm going to spank him? Do you think I will?
And to ask me if I've ever been known to spank a fan, oh God. Yes, many times. That's the answer, many times. But, oh yeah. No, but for those of you who don't know about the nibbling, that is kind of funny. We had such a laugh yesterday. The nibbling started, oh boy, how do I explain to you? Because I make my own perfumes, and so when girls come along, and guys too, and I want to try some of the perfumes, then I always say, would you have any lotion or any perfume soap on already, or do you have any fragrance on already? And if they say no, I've just become so accustomed to lifting up their arm and just making sure, because my perfumes are all handmade, and I don't want to, if they're already wearing a perfume soap of any kind, or if they're already wearing another perfume, it's going to clash with mine. So I just smell their arm to make sure that there's nothing there, and then I'll spray. And then one day, this is years ago, I started this riot of gossip. And, and so years ago, this girl, she said, no, I don't have any fragrance on my arm. And I said, oh, and I just smelled it, and it was so pretty. The fragrance that she had on, she forgot she'd used some lotion or something. And it was so pretty. I said, oh my God, that is so pretty. Oh, I could just eat it. You know how when you see a little baby, you go, oh, I could just eat your cheeks. And so I was saying that to her, oh my God, it's a lot. And I pretended, I went, just pretended to bite, in a very kind of loving, maternal, just like a motherly way. It was so completely harmless and really, really, no, but you know what I mean. It was very, very sweet and just cute. She's saying, oh my God, in a motherly way, that's all. But you had to be there, it's one of those moments where you just had to be there. And I was showing you guys yesterday, wasn't it, what I mean? And it was really, really sweet, just such a sweet and warm and friendly moment. But then you guys have something called telephone? We call it in Australia, it's a stupid name, it's called Chinese whispers. But you call it telephone. So when, someone probably said to someone else, oh, so sweet, Virginia was like pretending to nibble on this girl's arm. She said she loved the perfume so much. Then someone else would say, what do you mean, what, nibbling? What was she biting the girl's arm? And then it went from person to person, what, Virginia, did you hear she bit a fan's arm? And then, right? And then, because you know how it works with the internet, and then it was like, Virginia Hay bites fan. And by the time it comes back to me, someone's saying, my God, I heard about you, that's awful. What did that fan do? You bit them. What? I did what? I bit a fan? And it sounds like a rabid dog, like biting someone's ankle. So, and it's the sweetest and most innocent, gentle thing ended up being such a horrible, awful. So anyway, that's what he's talking about, the nibbling. And then the spanking. Well, spanking, yes. Absolutely. But I noticed that years ago when I did the very first convention ever, the Farscape convention at Burbank. And someone said something, I can't remember what it was, but it was really silly. And I said, oh, you deserve a good spanking. Come up here and I'm going to spank you. And so for me it was a light-hearted fun, but punishment. And this guy loved it. And then there are all these guys in the audience going, I will be naughty, can I be naughty, can I be naughty? And you guys, there's something wrong with yours. Twisted Americans. It's supposed to be punishment. It's not a reward. Well, it is now. I know it's a reward. But I daren't offer it as a reward because I would be all day spanking people. Can you imagine? I'd have to set up a spank booth. Next. Anyway. Oh God! There we go. Here's the marketing genius. Shame on you. There's done.
I was just thinking, everything doesn't always go according to plan.
No.
Is there anything that really stuck out during the show that seemed horrible at the time, but looking back on it, you were really glad it happened like that?
Yeah, I think cutting off Pilot's arm. Yeah, I think overall, generally speaking, I think cutting off or threatening to or cutting off Pilot's arm in order to get back home, I think that was just nonsensical for me at the time. I didn't understand it, and I didn't know why the writers did that. I thought that I was playing very peaceful. Because don't forget that I don't know how it works here in this country. I've never worked in America. But how we work TV in Australia is it kind of gets written, I'm sure it's the same over here, it gets written as you go, really, pretty much. I mean, the characters are never, I guess they're sort of vaguely mapped out in the beginning of a series. They have a vague idea of obviously where everything's going to go. But a lot of the details, they come up with details. They rewrite characters as they go. So there's a lot of stuff that I didn't even know. And I honestly didn't know in the beginning that she had been an assassin. And I didn't find out that she was an assassin until I cut off Pilot's arm and went to the writers and said, what the hell? I don't understand. But I really don't understand. Why? And like you were as well, of course. Why? And they explained to me, that this is why, and I can't remember whether they decided that was the way they were going to go then, or whether they had already predetermined that in the beginning. But I was glad I found out, because then what it did eventually through the story arc was provide me with such fantastic acting meat to chew on. Because any actor wants to be challenged. We of course love to work, and it's fantastic to play, a character, really get to know your character inside out and just keep going. But it's even better if you're constantly surprised and you have some really crazy, twisted things to. And you kind of playing a human, you're never going to have, a lot of really twisted turns as a human, unless the human is constantly changing personality, has multiple personalities. That would be the only time that you'd be able to play a character that shifted dramatically from one thing to another, because humans do it. So playing an alien was kind of cool because there's no boundary, and anything's possible. And so the more we found out about this violent side of Sam, the more fun it was for me as an actor fun, it was really hard work, but it was challenging. So I got to play some sides to Zan that were incredibly complicated and hard to do, but the harder it was, the better I liked it. Because it was, shame on you. Dirty mind. But I got it, so I must have one. I walked right into that one, didn't I? I walked right into that one. The more difficult it became, the more I liked it. Sorry, I hope that hurt you. Naughty boy. But yes, so that was.
I feel like I'm going to bring this panel down a bit. Because yesterday you were unfortunately cut off, and you were going to talk about lightgasm.
What was I going to talk about?
Lightgasm and your opinion.
Well, there were only two things. I remember saying, because I said, were there any things that you regret? And I said two things. One was cutting off Pilot's arm, but in a way it was fantastic because it led to all this, the complexities of Zan, which are great for any actor to play. That really felt very challenged as an actor, and I improved as an actor because of it. But the lightgasms, when I read about that, I just said, oh, come on, this is so... And, no. But see, what they were looking for in the beginning was, Zan was supposed to be a little bit different. She was actually supposed to be quite a sexual character. But at the same time, I remember Brian Henson, a bit of trivia for you. Brian Henson directed the first episode that we all were involved in. But actually it wasn't #1 episode, it was number 3 or number 4. Because when you're shooting a series for the first time, they don't want to shoot episode 1 first, because you won't really know your character very well to begin with. So what they usually do is shoot an episode somewhere in the future and hope to God that you guys don't notice the difference. You might think, oh, this episode's a bit flat, but really that's actually the first episode. Do you know what I mean? So what they do, they shoot some sort of episode 3 or 4 or 5 first, and then then another one and another one, and then they go back to 1 and 2. By the time you're well oiled in the character, they'll go back to 1. And Brian shot the very first episode. So, I suppose you can tell. Have a look on the breakdown of who directed what, and you can tell and see which one he directed. I think he only directed 1, did he? So, anyway, that was the first one. So we were all trying to figure out who our characters were, and he kept on saying to me, I want you to, because I thought that, all I knew was that Zan was a priest and that she was an alien priest. Didn't really know very much about her. And so I knew to slow down my movements a little bit, so I decided that I would try not to be Virginia, who's silly, and I talk with my hands, and I'm all the time like a Labrador puppy knocking things over with my tail, and clumsy, and saying stupid things, and talking before I think, and making so many errors. So I knew that I couldn't be like me. I had to, whatever an alien is, who knows? There might be aliens here in the room. We don't know. And what does an alien look like, and how do they behave? But I just figured that I wanted just to make her look more alien by, having her move her head very slowly and very, very. It's almost as though she was in slow motion. So Brian would say to me, "No, I want you to be more regal." So I'd think, "Oh, okay, I'm going to be regal." So I'd be more regal in my portrayal. Then he said, "No, we're going to do it again. I want you to be feline." Feline? Oh, okay, so I'll be feline, so I'd be more feline. You go, no, we're going to do it again. No, I want you to be regal. Okay. All right, be regal. No, you're too stiff. I want you to be feline. So I want you to be feline and regal. How can I be feline and regal? This is not possible. Be regal. Now that I've seen my cats doing it, I think, feline and regal at the same time. But it was really hard for me because I didn't understand what he meant, feline, regal. And this is before Chiana joined the cast, right, the first few episodes. And I found out later that they were hoping that Zan would be more kind of sexy. And you can see by some of the writing, some of the scenes with Dargo in the beginning were very flirty and so forth. And she wasn't she? She was much more flirty in the beginning. But they decided that I just wasn't giving them the level of flirtatiousness and naughtiness that they wanted in a character. So they decided they really loved whatever Zan became, and they brought in, because they were missing a very naughty girl. They wanted to introduce a naughty girl, and they couldn't figure out how to make Zan naughty and be a priest at the same time. So Dragon Con would be the only place where there would be a naughty nun or a wicked priest, right? But anywhere else. So they introduced Chiana, who was just thorough naughtiness. But so when it came to later on, the lightgasms, I just thought, no, it's just really, not that it's got anything to do with me, but I did go into the writers, I only went into the writers twice. Once was when Pilot's Arm was kind of, and the other time was when these lightgasms happened. They wanted me to do the Harry Met Sally thing. And I said, look, I will always do what I'm told because I'm an actor and my job is to make your character come to life. That's what you employ me to do. But I'm sorry. It just really goes against the grain of, I've lived with this character for so long now, it seems nonsensical to me. Because it hasn't been revealed from the very beginning. Why suddenly will she be stupid like this? When she's so elegant. She's maternal and she's safe, and this is so silly. Anyway, so I just thought, but I was very spoiled because they allowed me to downplay those scenes, but they were supposed to be quite graphic. And I really very strongly disapproved, and I was kind of they let me get away with it. I got away with the disapproval, but it's the only time, you're not really supposed to do that as an actor. It's none of my business. I'm not in charge of the writing. I mean, it's different if you're like Ben, who's a very, very gifted writer and who contributes an awful lot to the dialogue and to the story arcs and things like that. Of course, I didn't do that. I'm not a writer. And so how dare I say to the writers, I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. It's really very bad of me, but I had to. I just hated that, ugh. And people always assume, by the way, just while I'm here, I just want to get one little bit of gossip out of the way. And that is, no, it was never me naked. And the thing is, now that you know me and you know my body shape, it's still extraordinary. Isn't it amazing how the human mind can be fooled? Just because you see a naked body and she's blue, you naturally presume it's me. Right? Yeah. But in actual fact, she's like 5'3", and she has hips the size of a little piece of spaghetti, right? And shoulders like broader than mine. And she was built like a man from the back. Tiny, weeny, little, tiny hips and very big, broad shoulders. And that's not my body. And I've got this big Norwegian potato farmer body, Even when I'm skinny, I can never have hips that are like little snake hips because it's just not my skeleton. I've got wide hips and reasonably broad shoulders, but not my. If you go back and everyone will be rewinding now, you can actually tell it's nothing like my body. And because she's really little, her head's big and her body's small. With tall people, everyone's head is the same size, right? Pretty much. But if you're very, very tall, your head seems small on your body. If you're very, very short, your head seems to be really big on your body. She's very, very short, so her head seems to be big. But her name is Kat, and it took probably, oh God, I don't know how many hours, maybe 12 hours or something to paint